The SEC is taking a week off. We are not here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by early on a Thursday. Certainly early for us here at the Voice of College Football. We're typically late night folks, and just because we're here fairly early on a Thursday doesn't mean that we've given up the late night shift as well. So you will see us late night on Friday. You will see us probably after the ball games tonight. I believe we've got Pitt and Boston College getting together in a huge, enormous ACC battle. Boston College is bowl eligible at 6-4, but we are talking SEC here for the next who knows how long, because it depends on your participation. We have Brent Beard stopping by from First Coast News and Second Helping Podcast to talk SEC. And if you caught Brent's work in the past, whether it be here or on his platform, you know that he is a wealth of SEC knowledge. Leave your comments and questions there in the chat as well. Please support here at the Voice of College Football if you enjoy the content. If you don't, certainly move on. But if you enjoy the best in discussion, debate, and analysis of college football, you've arrived at the best spot possible. Sponsor the Voice of College Football. You can do that as a company. We will benefit your company in a number of ways. Give me a hit at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, and we will certainly let you know how we can benefit and partner with you and your own personal brand. You can also promote here at the Voice of College Football. It's a week 12 in the SEC, and when I stated that the SEC was taking the week off, we all know what that means. It's time to rest and relax. It's time to play the starters for a couple series. It's time to kick around the FCS. That is what the next to last weekend, the penultimate weekend of the college football season, has become for many of the SEC powers. Not everyone. We do have a few reasonable games headlined by Georgia and Tennessee. Also, Mizzou goes up against, is it Mizzou? We've got, oh my goodness, South Carolina and Kentucky, Mizzou and Florida. Yes, that's the matchup in Columbia. Just about everybody else taking the week off. As long as the SEC is fair, which it is within the conference, so everybody that gets the scrimmage game the next two final weekend play each other. So Alabama, Auburn, they both get the weekend off. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, well, they're going into a Thursday game, so it makes sense with the Thanksgiving game, which, again, brilliant move by those two schools 25 years ago. This will be the 25th anniversary, actually. Just hit me. 25th anniversary of Ole Miss and Mississippi State playing on Thanksgiving night. And I was there at Vaught Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, covering the Ole Miss Mississippi State Egg Bowl game on Thanksgiving, the first time Tommy Tuberville coached his final game at Ole Miss and headed on the plane to Auburn following the, I'm pretty good at scores, 28-6 loss to Jackie Sherrill and company. And that Mississippi State team, meanwhile, was headed to the SEC championship game. Not quite the stakes in this year's game, although Lane Kiffin could be coaching his final game in Oxford against Mississippi State. There is some trouble brewing there in Oxford. That is a possibility. Ole Miss coming off a loss to Georgia. It's not on the field issues, of course. Lane doing a fabulous job there with the Rebels at 8-2, even though they got completely embarrassed by Georgia. That is not necessarily a shock, but issues with a player, issues that were recorded, leaked, and are out there for everyone to listen to and make their own judgment. I've got to say that I have not taken in that entire exchange and communication from Lane Kiffin to one of his players. I've seen the clips here and there and the sound bites and the quotations, but I have not taken it in from start to finish. Probably should, and make some kind of determination for myself and for all of you to offer up my perspective on that. But we will focus on the football. And again, Alabama, LSU, and others have the week off. Georgia, Tennessee, we will be dropping a video over on the SEC channel. So, folks, we've got an SEC channel that we launched at the beginning of the season. So be familiar with that. Some of you are watching there. Many of you are not. Most are not. Most will be right here watching our SEC live show here on the main channel, but we've got an SEC channel. So please grab the link in the description section, head on over there, check out the SEC channel. We typically record and post 4, 5, 6 conversations with SEC beat writers, media people from the SEC each and every week, and it's worth it. Anthony Dasher from Rivals joined us to talk Georgia. Georgia taking on Tennessee. Of course, we know how big that matchup was last year when the Vols went to Athens and got their butts kicked 27-14. Did not in any way give indication as to how dominant Georgia was in that game over Tennessee. Had that game 27-7 late, and it was just an ambush. It was an ambush by the Georgia defense in classic fashion against arguably the most prolific offense in college football. Now, this Tennessee offense has not replaced Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton is not Hendon Hooker, and this Tennessee offense has not replaced the wide receiver position either, even though Squirrel White and others are fine talents. Brew McCoy, who's been, I believe, injured and out for quite some time now, but not replacing Cedric Tillman and that bunch. Jermaine Hyatt, of course, who won the Biletnikoff Award last season. So Tennessee, not the juggernaut on offense or in totality than they were last year at 11-2. They come in at 7-3. Disappointing effort by the Vols going to Columbia. And as Eli Drinkwitz said after the ball game, and he was fired up, and rightfully so, and you can understand his fervor, his passion, his pride, and his exuberance after his Missouri team, as basically a pick'em game, was able to do that to Tennessee after giving up 66 and 62 points the past 2 seasons to the Vols. So Josh Heupel's offenses had put up 62 and 66 against Mizzou the last 2 seasons. And Eli Drinkwitz, who I've been mildly critical of, not harshly critical, mildly critical, is a 500 football coach at Mizzou. That's what the record states going into this season. Barry Odom had a better record going into this season. Barry Odom had a better run at Mizzou than Eli Drinkwitz. That doesn't mean he was doing a better job necessarily, but had a better record. Now Barry Odom doing a nice little job at UNLV. But Eli Drinkwitz has put together one fine season. And a 29-point win over Tennessee. I know the Vols aren't what they were last year, but still talented football team. Dysfunctional on the offensive side of the ball, and Joe Milton has not been the answer. But that was a butt kicking, or as Eli Drinkwitz said, our defense kicked their asses. And again, I think he was venting and just taking that Steve Young monkey and throwing it off his shoulders, because we got to understand you're going to feel some heat and some pressure anywhere, even though we think of Mizzou as a low pressure job, relatively speaking, compared to other schools in the SEC. It's still a big time job. And he's a 500 coach going into this season. So Eli Drinkwitz was showing up on some SEC hot seat lists, but 8-2, beat Kansas State, lost to LSU, very close game in Columbia. Pick 6 did him in with a shot, a small shot, but a shot to win the game late. Blew a lead of 15 points actually in that game to, Jaden Daniels, who scores a zillion points against just about everyone. So they give up that zillion points to Jaden Daniels and company, but lose that game. And then, of course, the fine showing at Georgia, which to me really showed the worth of this Missouri team. Going to Georgia, playing pretty much toe-to-toe with the Bulldogs for that long. All right, we appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. Look at this. Ty Hudson's on the line. Talk with Ty.
Top of the morning to you.
Ed, what did we do? Wake you up a little early?
No, actually, I got your tag on Twitter when I was at Walmart, And I was like, well, I'm just going to hurry up, get home. I'm going to hop on there and just see how things are going. I'm here to check in on everybody.
Okay, that's very cool. I will say, Ty, that Brent Beard is scheduled at 10 o'clock. So when he jumps on, we'll bring him on as well. But he was scheduled at 10. Everybody else, I just said, hey, jump on if you'd like.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you being here.
I got to drop off our Mr. Kitters, our cat, at the vet in like 40 minutes. So I've got a little bit of time to kill.
Cool.
The vet's 5 minutes down the road. So I've got a little bit of time here.
Well, we could talk nuts and bolts of Arkansas football if we really wanted to dive into what, like 13 people care about concerning the last two games of the season. Even though I'm that guy. I'm that guy that wants the Missouri breakdown or whoever Arkansas plays this week.
Yeah.
Who's Arkansas play this week?
They got FIU.
Okay, I knew it was a layup game. Okay,
mm-hmm.
the typical SEC layup game on the next to the final weekend of the season that people like to make fun of. But the big picture, the college football fan out there, the college football nation that typically checks out what we do here is more concerned about, okay, what's the status of this Arkansas football program? What is going on? What happened this year? And how does this forbade into the off season?
Well, it's I was live last night talking about it. Of course, I ran into some internet issues, so I had to restart the stream, and I was going really good for about 10-15 minutes on the situation and where Arkansas was at, and then my internet dropped, and then we had to get it back going. But yeah, I don't know, Mark. It's like it's not to say that Arkansas didn't have a basement. If there's a ceiling, which a lot of people thought was going to be 8-9 wins, it's not to say that missing a bowl game wasn't the basement for this team, because I think it was. There's a very wide gap between hitting that ceiling and then falling down to the basement. And they've clearly they're now below the basement. They're I don't know. They're in an underground cellar somewhere in terms of hitting rock bottom this year. I didn't see this coming. I'm going to be real with you. I really didn't. I said when they hired Pitman, and this isn't a I told you so to anybody. I never would have thought things would come back around to where they started when Sam took the job. But I thought he was an in-between hire that would get about 4 to 5 years, unless things really just went south quicker and never picked up, which didn't happen. 2020, they put a good product on the field. Really won 4 games. I still count that Auburn game in my head as a win, even though the backwards, the fumble that happened and the no clear recovery nonsense. They won 3 games.
You'll have to show that highlight when Bo Nix wins the Heisman.
I love Bo Nix, man. I'm team Bo Nix.
Fault.
I like him. He
doesn't officiate the game. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't his fault. And Auburn in that game in the first half was dominating that game. Arkansas came back and made a hell of a comeback in the second half. But no, they won 3 games on an all SEC schedule in 2020, far better than what we'd seen the previous 3 seasons on the field. I had a feeling 2021 could be a really good year. KJ's the guy. I think he's going to be the guy, and he was the guy.
And Ty, I'm going to cut you off real quick.
Sure.
You know that we had a number of conversations during that time, and you are all over it, of course, week to week. But even in my observation of watching Arkansas football, I was like, this team, I don't think people get it because they're looking at the record, but this team is so incredibly better than they were. They're like competing against really good teams in the SEC, and they couldn't compete against Colorado State and North Texas and whoever, Western Kentucky last year. It was remarkable what they achieved.
That turnaround was incredible. And I had a hard time telling people because I picked them to go 8, and I picked 8 wins in 2021. Anyone can go back and look that video up. I picked 8 wins. And I certainly had a number of people who didn't buy into it. But then you fast forward to this year, I said they would win 9, Mark. I mean, I feel like I have hit out in left field so far that it's out of the stadium, but it's in foul territory, and it's going backwards, and it's hitting the batter. It's hitting the guy at the plate. I can't believe how far this program has fallen. Well, if you would have told me that after the 2021 season, I would have said, no way, not in 2 years. I mean, certainly they're on an upwards trajectory here. And yet here we are. And if to boil it down to the specifics of what I think it is, I think it's an evaluation issue. Why you brought Dan Enos in here to coach this offense when it was clearly, I hate to use this analogy, square peg, round hole. It's either an overconfidence in what KJ's capabilities were as a quarterback, which it's how could you blame him? KJ looked fantastic 2 years as the guy. And he was on his way to breaking all these records, which he's broken a number of records. Don't ask me which ones, but he's done it. He's had a pretty solid career, but there was a breakdown in evaluation, right? And then I don't know that there was much thought put into, will this offense mesh with what we have up front on the line of scrimmage? You know, it's very, very painfully obvious that the offensive line, it's the worst maybe among Power 5 football. I mean, if it's not the worst, it's certainly the worst in the SEC. KJ would have more sacks if he wasn't so capable of a runner. So it's a breakdown in evaluation. It's poor talent development. It's a number of things. They whiffed on so many players out of high school and the portal combined the last couple of years, and it caught up to them. And, we just bought into what we'd seen the previous, at least in 2021. 2022, even though they won 6, was still a little bit of a letdown. But I really thought, man, Dan Enos, we're going to recapture what happened in 2015 when he was the offensive coordinator here with Brandon Allen in his senior year. We're going to recapture that. I mean, how could you not? Rocket Sanders and KJ was considered one of the best quarterback running back duos in the SEC, and if not the SEC, all of college football. One of the better combos. And I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. Defensive side of the ball, outside of this last game against Auburn, has done very well. And so there you could say, well, the evaluation clearly worked there. It just didn't with the offensive line, with the coordinator hire, the wide receivers they pulled out of the transfer outside of Armstrong. Like it's just been pure chaos this year, Mark.
We will have Brent Beard, our buddy from First Coast News. Hi, this is Brent. Ty is with Tusk Talk with Ty right here on YouTube, talking Arkansas football, your favorite audio podcast. Brent Beard, our buddy as well. So, Brent, we're talking about Arkansas football. And I will lead with this, and we can have you two go at it regarding the Hogs. And definitely I want to respect both of your time. So certainly whenever you guys need to jump off. Usually when there's that kind of turnaround, Brent, we're talking about Sam Pitman having the big splash in 2020. Yeah. And obviously the big elevation to 9-4. Mm-hmm. Usually when you see that and then you see it go back down, it's okay. Let's go back there and see. Did they get like an easy schedule that year? Did they have like every bounce in the world go their way? Did they maybe have a couple transformational kind of players lift them and cover up a lot of mistakes? Did they have like this senior laden team that was just so experienced they eked out games? I think there's a couple things there. Certainly not the schedule, because even though the SEC might be down this year, it was definitely not down in 2021. So It was not an easy schedule. There might be a couple things there. What Rocket Sanders, KJ Jefferson may be making up for some deficiencies elsewhere.
Well, guys, good to be on with you. Arkansas has had some issues like a lot of teams have. I think you mentioned Rocket Sanders. I think his being out has hurt them considerably. I'm glad. Hopefully he can come back and finish the season strong. I love Jefferson and what he's able to do. It's really a shame that they lost the momentum they gained from beating Florida. I mean, obviously we're an hour away from Gainesville here in the Jacksonville area. So that was a very disappointing loss, but give Arkansas a lot of credit for being able to win that game on the road. Mark, you mentioned something about the schedule. I mean, not necessarily this year, And I think Arkansas actually gets a break next year, and they deserve it because the last couple of years, their schedule was brutal. I mean, the non-conference schedule was too. Look, and frankly, I like Pitman. I know that has nothing to do with anything at all, and I think a lot of people probably do too. They certainly, the offensive line's got to get better. The Dan Enos situation just didn't work. Unfortunately, they're also in the SEC West, but even after you take the divisions away, it's still going to be tough for Texas and Oklahoma being able to join. Now I just say what I've heard, and I'm certainly curious about the Arkansas angle of it, is that they really don't want to fire him because they may not be able to afford to fire him in the buyout this year. I'm curious where all that is. I know that has something to do with what's going on at this point. I mean, I like say, I hope he gets another year, but if they just decide particularly in these last couple of games, if it's not going to work, we've got to make a change. I mean, I get that's life in the SEC.
Yeah, well, his I don't know what's going on with the board of trustees, with the big boosters. Of course, we all know U of A's got some massive boosters, but a lot of SEC programs do. There's a considerable amount of talk about what exactly is going to happen December. I think he's scheduled to make something like $6.3 million. I'm not real on top of all the salary stuff, but he's got a $500,000 annual salary. His buyout is supposedly it's gonna, he's hit a mark, and so his buyout has increased. But then there's something going on about December 1st. I don't know how much accuracy is with that. I don't know, man. What I will say is that the frustration is at all levels. The board of trustees, rumor was they really wanted Gus Malzahn, or at least there was one or two of the trustees that really wanted Gus. And now we're hearing reports that Gus and his wife have no plans to come back to Northwest Arkansas until he's ready to retire. It's kind of all over the place. It feels like they're either going to wait till after the Missouri game to make a move, or they're just going to let him have another year. There were multiple reports from pretty considerable sources. They weren't coming to me. It's stuff they're putting on their boards. Verified media members saying that a move was made on Sunday regarding Pitman's future, and yet nothing happened. We don't know what that means. Does that mean that they told him on Sunday after the loss to Auburn that, oh, well, you know what, we're going to give you another year, or, we're going to give you these last two games, see what you can do? No one really knows, but the temperature amongst fans is they want him out. I mean, the vast majority of fans, I can't speak for everybody. I mean, social media doesn't make up all of fandom. We know that, but certainly to the people that I've talked with, that's the temperature. If you want to use social media as an example, there's not very many people. Like I said, I had a live show last night, and I've talked about this situation now for at least the last 3 lives to some degree. It's 9 to 1. The people that want him gone.
Well, Tom, my question too is, you mentioned Gus. Now, here's a reality with Gus. I get the Arkansas ties, but in what your record says is who you are. Mm-hmm. Gus is a 7-5, 8-4 football coach, and that's the bottom line. You're not bringing in Gus to win championships. You would bring Gus in to kind of settle things around 7-5, 8-4, and maybe a 9-3 or 10 wins. And look, I'm not saying Gus is a bad football coach. I'm just saying that's the reality of it. Yeah. So I mean, would they do a lot better if they make that change time going in another direction? I mean, I think there's guys out there right now. Lance Leopold at Kansas, who is a program builder. Sumrall, the guy at Troy, I think is a really good coach on the horizon. I still think that is a really good job. Now, this is from I know you're in the middle of the weeds there with it, and I get that, but even with people looking on the outside, you can't convince me, and a guy who's covered the SEC now since the early 90s in the media, that Arkansas job is not a good job, because it is.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me why? Because I'm glad to hear you say that. Can you tell me why you think that's the case, given the situation they've been in since joining the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I know they haven't won like they'd like to win, and I understand that, but I still think there is I mean, when I talk to other SEC media, if Arkansas is on the schedule, their comment is, "Oh, brother, we've got Arkansas coming up, and they've got athletes." And that's going to be a really tough game. You don't hear that about all of it. So I'm just saying there may be a little bit better of a perception from media outside of Arkansas sometimes than there is maybe even inside the state. Does that make sense?
No, I hear you. Yeah. I was up in the press box when Arkansas hosted Alabama a couple of years ago, and of course Arkansas lost that game. But I talked with a couple of out of state media people there, some people from Tuscaloosa, and they said the same thing. They said, I think Arkansas, of course, at the time we didn't know where their trajectory was headed at that point in time. It felt like they could still win several more games, but they kind of said the same thing. Like, this is still, I think it's a good job, and you've got money, you've got influence.
Mm-hmm.
The market around here is fantastic, thanks to Walmart and the vendors and Tyson and JB Hunt. The list goes on. It's a nice area to live in. That does appeal to coaches, and it appeals to their families. I think what they're facing right now, it feels like they go through this lately. It's been more times than not, but they've dug themselves in a little bit of a hole. It's not to say they can't dig themselves out.
Yeah.
So to put it in perspective, historically, recent history, if we want to go way back, shoot, I thought Arkansas was a giant when I was growing up in the late 70s, early 80s. They were really good. But let's just take the last 25 to 30 years since the SEC entry. This program has been to 3 SEC championship games. Ole Miss can't say that. Mississippi State can't say that. I know Texas A&M's only been in the league, but it's now been 12 football seasons. They haven't been to one. And Ole Miss and Mississippi State, nationally, people may scoff at that statement, but those are top 25 to 30 to 35 level programs in the country, and they can't get there. And Arkansas has 3 times. And even when they haven't, the Bobby Petrino run there around 2010, 2 consecutive top 5 to 10 finishes in the country. You can win at Arkansas. Is it easy? No, but you can win big.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, regarding the Gus Malzahn statement, that happens. It is because of the Springdale connection every single time.
Yeah,
the coach
sure does. Oh, yeah.
And I have to tell people, I get it. Travis Williams is the defensive coordinator here. People want him to stay, and that's your most likely option if you brought Gus in, and there's a feeling that he would level out the program, and he would be the guy to get you to 7, maybe 8 wins a year, back to kind of that Houston Nut status, which fans eventually were tired of, and they fired him after winning 18 games in 2 years. So, it's just it's a basketball, baseball, track program that desperately wants to be to be more relevant in football, and that's the South, and that being down in Florida. I mean, that's just, you want to be good at football, man, and it is a proud damn state over here. It absolutely is.
Sure, it is.
They've always had that little brother syndrome to the Texas Longhorns back in the day. You guys mentioned how great this program was in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. I think fans would love to get back to that, and that's just kind of what they're tired of being middle of the pack or the bottom of the SEC. They want to get back to some level of relevance within the conference.
And I'll say this real quick with Gus. I mean, they really like UCF. I mean, UCF ties only a couple hours away from us here, And now they haven't had a tremendous year, but that there's all kinds of potential for UCF, particularly with the playoff and in them changing conferences and things of that nature. So I don't even know if he wants to get back. And another big thing is, and to Mark, is does he really want to get back into the SEC? Especially with knowing that Texas and Oklahoma are coming too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to win a conference championship, I mean, his opportunity of doing that would be probably better with staying where he is. But here's the other thing is, and look, I've lived in Alabama, I've lived in Dallas, Fort Worth area. I get the lure of going home, and that in the end, time may be the thing that caps it all. Particularly if his wife's ready to go back home to Arkansas, but with him just getting there, I wonder how much longer that he wants to see if he can flourish there before he'd really consider coming back to Arkansas.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 110%. I try to look at it as much from the outside looking in as humanly possible. It's right now, like I mentioned earlier, they've dug themselves into a hole. I don't know that Gus or any coach, Rhett Lashley's name has come up. He's another
right.
Played at Arkansas. He was at Shiloh Christian down the road from my house here. He's part of that Gus Malzahn tree. Who's to say? I mean, he's not doing too bad at SMU right now.
No,
Arkansas's
right.
got to build that up before they can go after some of these other names.
So, Brent, you probably have about 15 or 20 minutes, something in that range?
Yeah. Overall, yes.
Ty, you are certainly welcome to hang around, but I'd like to hit on some other SEC news and notes and teams this week. So, certainly, Ty, hang around if you'd like.
Okay. I can do probably another 5-10 minutes here.
So, Brent, this is the infamous scrimmage week for the SEC that the rest of the nation likes to pile on.
Right.
And I try to stay somewhere in the middle where I certainly poke some fun, but at the same time, I also explain that doesn't mean that the SEC schedules are lighter than anyone else's. Let's look at the entirety of the schedules. But they have, unlike the other conferences, taken this opportunity to basically play these FCS teams in what you could call cupcakes or scrimmage games. I have no issue with it as long as the rest of the schedule is just as difficult out of conference as the other conferences, number one. Number two, just so the teams that are playing the cupcakes are playing each other the next week. And the SEC has been very good about making sure, okay, Alabama's got a cupcake, Auburn's got a cupcake, they're playing the next week. Been very fair about that. Now, there are 3 games in the SEC, and I'm thinking that the conference would hope that they're not completely off the radar for the week, that one of these matchups would be, championship impacting, and that was supposed to be Georgia and Tennessee. It's really not, although if a miracle does ensue at Neyland Stadium, then it would catch everyone's attention. But that's obviously the headliner this weekend.
Yeah, it is. Tennessee getting back home, the Vols have been 4-5 on the road the last 2 years. So that's been a problem for Josh Heupel. I think as far as these games are concerned, and by the way, one of the more interesting games, New Mexico State and Jerry Kill play Auburn. They could give Auburn a lot of trouble. I mean, that's a good little football team, frankly. Now, New Mexico State's one of those teams you watch when you're going back and forth, taking the trash out on Tuesday and Wednesday night, and you got the game on, and you look up to kind of see what the score is. But I think a lot of these games will go by the wayside when the league eventually adds and goes to a 9th game, a 9th SEC game, and I still think that's coming sooner or later. Mark and Ty, I think people would accept these games more when they're in September rather than now.
Hmm.
For some reason, fans just don't like these games in November, particularly for the rivalry games. And guys, let me throw this out for everybody to think about a little bit. Now, this is not assured yet. It's not in concrete, but, and you guys have kept up with this like I have, when we expand the playoffs, we're talking about starting the season the last week of August. And then this week, if we're a year from now, may very well be rivalry week, and Thanksgiving week may be championship weekend. So now you think about that, and the traditions with these games that you've got: Florida, Florida State, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia Tech, going down the line. Man, what is that going to do for the fans that we interact with if that's going on this time next year? And how different is all that going to be?
Well, Brent, don't hurt Ty's feelings by leaving out the Arkansas-Missouri rivalry, because I know he's big on that one.
That's right.
Then also, you already hurt his feelings by indicating that Auburn could possibly beat New Mexico State by less than they beat Arkansas.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I still thought Arkansas would win that game after the Arkansas team I saw beat Florida. But again, it obviously it wasn't in the cards. But the thing, I think the thing with that game too is, how mature is this Auburn team? Are they putting all their money and time and everything, schemes into beating Alabama, and not concentrating on New Mexico State? So that to me is one of the more intriguing games of the weekend. Now, Florida is still trying to get bowl eligible. And by the way, that Missouri team is really good, particularly offensively, with the job that they've done with Cook and Schrader and that whole offensive staff. So that's going to be a fascinating game too. And you've got Kentucky and South Carolina. Now, look, that's not going to excite a lot of people, but I think to the point, Mark and Ty, there's still enough intrigue in these games, whether it's qualifying for a bowl or like Missouri, they're trying to qualify for a New Year's Six game, that would encourage us and motivate us to watch it.
Yeah, that Florida Missouri game, even though I don't know what the spread is on that. That is certainly
11.
Is it 11? Okay, that's less than I thought. I figured it would be 14, something. That will be an interesting game to watch, because Florida's now in desperation mode to get to a bowl game. And like you mentioned, Missouri's trying to get to a January 1st bowl. But yeah, LSU was able to walk in there and get a win. Don't know how they did it, because looking back at it now, Missouri looks like the real deal, and LSU's got so many questions on defense. But I would probably take Missouri on the over, to be honest. I'm really impressed. It's a little, there's a weird taste in my mouth when I say that, but Missouri is certainly looks like a really good football team. And then after that, they got to play, talking about Florida, they got to play the Seminoles. Yeah. Talk about a tough stretch. That's golly.
Well, Brent, you highlighted the Mizzou offense. Eli Drinkwitz, of course, amused a lot of people. He was excited about the defense after the game. And this is after giving up, as you guys well know, 66 and 62 points to Tennessee the last 2 years, and said, our defense kicked their arses. He was really excited after the game, yelling that comment at the sideline reporter.
I give him a lot of credit and drink with. Now, he likes to stir it up a little bit with his comments on beating Tennessee and Vanderbilt, where they own the state of Tennessee now. But you guys may remember at SEC Media Days, they asked Drinkwitz about calling plays. He said, look, that's what I've got my reputation on, but it's too much for me right now. And I just need to give the team a a fresh outlook and get someone else to call the plays. Well, I tell you, that's worked, hadn't it? So, and frankly, that's one thing Billy Napier's got to do here. Is Napier's got to bring in an offensive coordinator. It's not that he can't call plays, guys, but at some point, you're better off when you're the CEO instead of the play caller too. Not everybody's Steve Spurrier, and we understand that. So, and he also needs to bring in a special teams coordinator with that also. I appreciate the question here, and I'll answer that if that's okay, Mark.
Absolutely.
It is Napier's going to last. He's not going to be fired. That's what we're hearing, is that they understand Dan Mullen. They didn't leave him a lot, but still they've got a recruiting class. They're losing players. They were third in the recruiting rankings. Now they're like sixth. So they've lost 3 guys over the last few days, and they've got to circle the wagons for that class. Frankly, the DJ Lagway question is a good one. Lagway is a superstar quarterback that's coming in who will be a freshman with this too. We still don't know what the quarterback room is going to be. Frankly, Graham Mertz, now look, he's not going to win the Heisman, but Mertz has done a good job. He's been steady. He started throwing the ball down the field more in the South Carolina win when they came back in the fourth quarter. So Napier's safe, but at the same time, he's got to do a lot of work, guys. And Ty understands this, Mark, you do too. When you come into this league, there is a growth, there is a learning curve, is it not? I don't care who you are, and that's why a lot of schools will hire SEC coaches with SEC experience. Look, I understand if you can coach, you can coach, but but Billy Napier is learning about that SEC learning curve right now, right?
He's hearing it from the fans too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yes.
Before I go here, I'm going to hop off, but it was really it was nice to meet you, Brent. Thanks for
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. It's going to be a good weekend. I'm fascinated to see how this season unfolds for the SEC, but it's going to be exciting to watch nonetheless. Fortunately for Arkansas fans, they've got Eric Musselman in this basketball program.
Yeah.
And then they have baseball. So it's not all bad for Hog fans.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unfortunate that the sport they want to win at the most, they're just trying to dig themselves out of the hole that they put themselves into. But it's nice to see you guys, and look forward to next time, Mark.
Good.
Thanks,
Take
Ty.
care.
Have a great day. That is Ty Hudson, everyone. Tusk Talk with Ty right here on YouTube. Brent, we had a conversation last night on our Florida State show that we do every Wednesday at 6 Eastern, everyone. And Brent, you would have been right in your wheelhouse in this conversation because we had Florida State guys, and I love them. They're great. They are the reason we've got a channel there. They're all steeped in football knowledge, maybe a little biased, though. So they were a bit upset that Georgia's ranked number 1. And that Florida State is being dissed by teams like Michigan in particular. Washington, of course, is ranked below Florida State, but in making some comparisons there. And I found myself defending the SEC for like a 20-minute debate to basically say, I understand that the conference has underachieved this year in out-of-conference games. There's no debating that. But I could not convince them that over the last 15 years that this conference has been the best conference, and it's not debatable.
No.
And they all believe, and I'm not picking on them, this is widely thought outside the SEC, that it's a Georgia-Alabama league, and that's it. And I noted that you could take Georgia and Alabama out of this conference. First of all, number one, you can't do that because they are in the conference. But if you want to go ahead and do that, then you have to remove Ohio State and Michigan. You've got to remove Clemson, Florida State. You know, you've got to do the same thing. And LSU, Florida, Auburn, depending on, the stretch of period of time that you want to look at, the non-conference record in the regular season, in postseason, of course, the playoff record, and the NFL draft selections that only back up the recruiting rankings from 3 to 4 years previous to that, when you see all those players then flood the NFL draft, it all just, I would love to have a debate on the best conference, but we haven't been able to have that debate for about 15 years
Yeah.
because it's just overwhelming.
Well, I agree with that. And look, I mean, I've covered the SEC for years, and because where we are, we also cover the ACC. Now, that's a good point. The Pac-12 had it's so sad that they're having the best year they may have ever had, and they're disbanding. That's the thing is so disappointing about that. But here's the thing about Florida State too, is their brethren in the league, as you said, are not really helping them. They're at the strength of schedule is higher for some of those other teams than it is for Florida State. Now look, if Florida State runs the table, do I think they belong in the playoffs? Yeah, I certainly do. That this is a tremendous team, but I think the thing that's been so dangerous about the SEC over the years, Mark, is it's not just Alabama and Georgia. It's the other teams that can beat you on any Saturday. I mean, who wants to go into Missouri right now and play them? Very few folks want to do that. I think Ole Miss has gotten to that point to where do you want to go into Oxford and play Ole Miss? Probably not. So that's what's always, to me, been the strength of this league is just the fact of being able to, the middle of the league can be so strong, i.e. Florida beating Utah last year at the beginning of the year. So look, I get the arguments all in all, but yeah, I mean, the SEC has been the dominant league, and adding Oklahoma and Texas, Mark, it's only going to add to it, right?
Absolutely. It's going to be a heck of a showdown between the Big Ten and the SEC once
It
the
will.
Big Ten adds the 4 that they are adding. I will say this as well. I do rank the Pac-12, and I'm taking the NFL results, the recruiting, all of that, just going with the results on the field. And I am currently ranking the Pac-12 as the best conference. I don't believe it's the best conference, but I believe that it's earned that based on the results on the field. But still, even at that, Brent, there are just so few results to really attach that to. Think about what that is. That's Washington beating Michigan State. That's Oregon beating Texas Tech. That's Utah beating Florida.
Sure.
Like there aren't the results for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
They've just taken care of business, but they have not notched a bunch of top 25 wins themselves, even the Pac-12.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's just a difficult analysis to make.
And what you hear, whether people believe it or not or want to accept it, is you've got this argument right now with an improving Alabama team in the playoffs, and what you hear from analysts that do not have a dog in the hunt is they think that Alabama would beat, say, both Washington and Oregon as far as the line of scrimmage and so forth. I mean, we can debate all this stuff all day long, and it's fun for what we do on a daily basis. But I get that argument in a lot of ways. So, but yeah, but I also am with you on the Pac-12 this year. I've enjoyed that immensely with where they are. at this point. And look, and you've got some teams, the Oregon State, playing so well and capable of pulling off upsets. So I wish they would have, and this is sermon on another day, but I wish the Pac-12 would have had the leadership, Mark, between their presidents, commissioners years ago to have set this conference on more solid footing. They deserve that compared to what they've got now.
Brent, again, want to honor and respect your time. So just certainly let me know when you need to take off. But I did want to hit on Georgia and Alabama if you have the time.
Yeah.
So let's
I've
stay.
got about 5 more minutes, Mark. So
very good. So quickly, we'll stay on the Alabama path because you brought them up in some kind of comparison against Washington and Oregon. But that direct comparison, of course, in the playoff rankings is with Texas. Well, the two teams played, so the head-to-head certainly, I believe, should be honored. But at the same time, this Alabama team, a much different team at this point. And this could be a heck of a comparison if we're down to a 12-1 versus 12-1 situation at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I can tell you this, I'm not saying Alabama would win, and they might, but that'd be a different game right now. And people forget, Alabama actually, at the end of the third quarter, went ahead. So they were ahead in that game late. Now I give Texas credit that they would, with the year that they've had. But where Bama is right now, you've got significant improvement in Jalen Milroe. You've got significant improvement in the Alabama offensive line. But where they've really improved is defense. Kevin Steele's come from Miami and done a tremendous job of that defense, even with some injuries, and they're able to put pressure on the quarterback. That's made a big difference. But with all that said, that doesn't mean that Alabama won't struggle when they go to Auburn next week, although Alabama's the better team. And the other thing is, in the SEC championship game, even with Alabama's improvement, I still think they're probably the only team in the league that can match up with Georgia as far as roster per roster. But that doesn't mean that they'll win that game either. But I will say, would it also surprise me if they run the table, and if they did, would they get in the playoffs? That would not surprise me either.
So, Brent, before we let you go, on the Georgia front, we all saw what they did to Ole Miss on Saturday night. I sat there watching that game thinking, this is just, wow, this is a statement. This is the best team in the country on this night, at least, and I believe it is in totality. And then the next day, I released my rankings on Sunday, and I'd been ranking Ohio State number one, not necessarily as the best team, but having the best resume. And then I elevated Georgia to number one this past week. Ohio State didn't do anything wrong. It's just, to me, a resume builds each week, of course. And then Georgia just with Missouri and Ole Miss the last 2 weeks, and that Kentucky performance as well. This team is just, I go back to the comment that Holly Rowe on the sidelines made to Carson Beck after the game. She said, it doesn't even look like you played a football game. You're completely clean. That offensive line is rounding into shape, and that defense.
Well, the Mims kid's back on the offensive line. Brock Bowers is back. Milton's getting better at running back. Edwards is playing really well at running back too. They lose one of their better linebackers. They have a freshman come in and get a sack and lead the team with 9 tackles. Dominic Lovett is finally rounding into who we thought he would be, and Ray Thomas is playing well too. They are so incredibly well coached, and they are the competition. They play hard every down because they're afraid of losing their job. I still think, like Saban, and this will sound funny, but you'll get it. I still think they revere and respect and a little bit afraid of Kirby, and that helps him in what they're doing. I mean, they're incredibly well coached. So, I mean, could they win 3 in a row? Yeah, that's very possible. Now, but it won't surprise me if they lose either because of the injuries. They're not as good as they were last year, I don't think. But again, I mean, you're comparing apples against apples, I guess, in a national championship team. So there's still a lot of season to go for them to get better. But no, I'm with you. I can't argue the fact at all that they are not the number one team. So yes.
Brent, we so much appreciate you stopping by, making this work today for us. It's Second Helping, SEC capitalized, Second
right.
Helping. Everybody
Yes.
get that? Okay. Second Helping podcast. It's a good listen with Brent and also First Coast News, of course. Brent, we appreciate you stopping by. Have a great day, sir.
In my Twitter feed at Brent Beard, Beaird, as you've got it on the screen. I try to update it several times during the day if people are at work. That's how they can find out. And my cat Chino loves to make guest appearances during podcasts. So he jumped up to give his opinion too.
Absolutely. That's just a bonus. That is just a bonus, everyone.
Absolutely. Mark, thanks brother. Good to be with you. Okay.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Good stuff from Brent Beard. First Coast News, Second Helping, SEC, Second Helping. There you go. All right. Let's get to some of these comments. The link I have not left anywhere, have I? Except on Twitter. So you can grab it on Twitter. I'll leave it in the chat and we'll hang out with all of you to talk SEC football. I did find some of these comments on the chat rather amusing, as I typically do. So let's see what we got here. Ed says, Alabama just beating cupcakes now. All right. Sure, they are. Ole Miss, LSU, Kentucky. All righty. Okay. Think we could add some other ones. Texas A&M. Yeah, Alabama's schedule is fine. It is just fine. All right. No need to defend Alabama's schedule. Bama struggled with Arkansas. They did. They had a big lead at halftime. Arkansas came back in the second half. And then Bama put it away with a classic 4 to 5 minute run-oriented, pounded down your throat drive with Jace McClellan running back. So that was impressive. They closed out Texas A&M in a similar way. Yeah, you're not going to dominate and crush everyone every week with a good schedule. So those are talented football teams, especially Texas A&M. We don't have to talk about how much talent they have. Yes, Alabama has not been as dominant as, let's say, Georgia has been recently. Okay, Ram says Big Ten West needs to get Oregon, Washington to even out the conference. Expect that to be completely blown up and they're not to either be divisions or the divisions are going to be realigned. That's a good video plug right there. Look up some of my videos. I've realigned the conference a number of ways that make sense and are completely balanced. And I've looked at the records of the teams involved. So geographically, it makes sense. In terms of determining a champion, it makes sense. In terms of equity and balance of the power in the conference, it makes sense. So check out those videos. But no, they will not just simply be like clumping teams onto divisions. They're not going to move like USC and UCLA all the way out to the Big Ten Eastern Division. Either new divisions or no divisions. Ed says Texas is better than Bama. We certainly were on that September night in Tuscaloosa, and they very well may be. I don't believe that they are, but they won the game, so they need to be credited with that win. And they should be ranked above Alabama. and should continue to be ranked above Alabama as long as that holds. But I do not believe that to be the case. I believe Bama is better than Texas. Will believes that Oregon would beat Bama, but I think the Tide better than the Huskies. I think Alabama's better than both of them myself. Ram says the Pac-12 is a beast this year. Well, the Pac-12 is deep. We know that. I do not believe that the top teams in the Pac-12, I believe they can compete, but I don't believe that they're better than Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama. But it's a very deep conference. It's a great conference, a quality conference, 6 or 7 deep. Absolutely. It's a beast from that standpoint. But let's also understand, in determining how good the Pac-12 is, who is the Pac-12 defeated out of conference? What are the marquee wins for the Pac-12 out of conference? I'm waiting. So the Pac-12, the best wins the Pac-12 has, I got to think, let's see, the best football team that the Pac-12 has defeated this year is Florida? Is that the best team the Pac-12 has beaten this year? Florida? I guess it is. That is the Pac-12's best win, Florida. Otherwise, the conference is just playing against itself. So Oregon beat Texas Tech, and that was a down to the wire game. Washington beat a deplorable Michigan State team. Oregon State played nobody outside the conference of note. Washington State beat Wisconsin. So is Wisconsin the best win? Is that the best win? So I am going to hold off on the Pac-12 being a beast. All the other conferences have shown that somebody can beat somebody else outside the conference of note. Ohio State beat Notre Dame. Florida State beat LSU. Really, the SEC. The SEC hasn't beaten anyone, have they? So this year, the SEC doesn't have that win outside the conference, do they? Nope. The SEC's best win, well, Missouri beat Kansas State. That's certainly a better win than anything the Pac-12 has. And then, of course, the Big 12 has the Texas win. So if you look at it that way, the Pac-12 has the worst best win. Yes. So Jared is saying the best SEC win out of conference. Yes. Missouri beat Kansas State. I would say Kansas State's better than anyone that the Pac-12 has defeated. Correct? Correct. So good conference. Let's not go crazy about how great the Pac-12 is. Let's see the Pac-12 play some legitimate teams. They have yet to do so. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that unless the Pac-12 makes the playoffs or plays in major bowl games. And those major bowl games are probably going to be tainted by opt-outs. So it's unfortunate that we're really not going to see a testing ground of, let's see Washington play Michigan. Let's see Oregon play Florida State. Let's see, wouldn't you just love if we could just say, let's see all these teams, a cross-section of these teams play. Or even some reasonable games. Let's see Oregon State play Texas A&M. Let's see Utah play Kansas State. Because the Pac-12 had an extremely strong resume for them, had a strong resume last season, and Utah went to the Rose Bowl and got trucked. And UCLA lost postseason, USC lost postseason. Oregon won a nail biter against North Carolina. North Carolina, pretty decent team. There were some other rather amusing comments in here. Let's see if I can find them. Let's see. Yes, Oregon State will be a heck of a game. Ed is going back into the archives. That game obviously did not take place this year. Wisconsin and LSU. Wisconsin curb stomped LSU. It's always good that I'm here to actually either correct the misinformed facts, the misinformation that's being put out there. So it's a good thing that I'm here to correct it or put it into context. Curb stomped LSU. So I believe Ed is going all the way back to 2015 and 16. So Ed's going back 8 years to Wisconsin and LSU playing basically home and home, neutral site, Houston and Lambeau Field in Green Bay. And LSU beat Wisconsin. They came back from deficit in the first game against Melvin Gordon and company, and LSU pulled that game out 28-24. Wisconsin returned the favor the next year at Lambeau Field and won by, this is the curb stomping, I believe the final score was 17-14 when, who was the LSU quarterback? I can't think of the guy's name. He was a turnover machine. It was not Jordan Jefferson. It was the quarterback right after that. I can't remember his name. LSU quarterback threw a late interception. So that's Ed's definition of a curb stomping 3-point game. So again, we obviously, Ed, we enjoy you being here. You're here consistently, but you certainly throw a lot of garbage into the chat, including this one. Penn State beat Auburn by 50. All right. Again, that's not this season. We're going back a few years. They played in 2021 and 2022. Penn State beat Auburn by like this much, that at home in 2021. And that Auburn team was a great Auburn team. That was a great 6-7 Auburn team. They were phenomenal. And let's keep in mind that Penn State beat them by that much. What was it, like 28-26? And then Penn State, an 11-2 Penn State team that won the Rose Bowl, finished in the top 10, went to Auburn, who went 5-7 last year. And did they beat them by 50? Okay, they beat them by 28. So our math is slightly off. So I don't know what that proved that Penn State beat Auburn. That would be like saying that Alabama beat Northwestern. Great. All right. Again, good thing I'm here. Jared says Georgia can win the title and the SEC still be down. Both can be true. Absolutely. It can be true. Danny Etling was the LSU quarterback. No, he was not. Good. Danny Etling was just prior to Joe Burrow. Danny Etling was 2017. I'm thinking of. So Danny Etling, of course, Michael would think of because he transferred from Purdue, and Will says that as well. It's not Danny Etling. It's a black guy. I'm going to look him up right now because I can't come up with his name. I couldn't even come up with Des Bryant's name the other day. So that's, I don't want to make a negative confession about my memory, but my goodness. And then I have a bunch of morons on here the other day. This was unbelievable. I know who Anthony Thomas is, the great Michigan running back, A-Train. I'm sure I've watched him more than like 99% of the people that made a comment to when I accidentally referred to him in the moment as Anthony Thompson. I know who Anthony Thomas is. I just, in the moment, said his name wrong. Then I got all sorts of people. You don't know who he is. Shut up. Okay. I am talking about. Has anyone else looked him up? I am speaking of Brandon Harris. There we go. Brandon Harris. That's who I'm talking about. Yeah, so 2016, then we got 2017. Yeah, in let's see. And I want to make sure I'm correct on this because you guys might be right about Danny Edling. So the Wisconsin game, they played, yes, in 2016 was the second Wisconsin game. Yes, this is the Wisconsin game that they got curb stomped 16-14. This was the curb stomping 16-14. Yes. And I am almost positive that Brandon Harris started that game. I know it. I don't need to look it up. Yes, there he is. 12 of 21, 2 interceptions, a touchdown. He threw a costly interception that ended the game with the great Bart Houston at quarterback for Wisconsin. Man, that was a much ballyhooed game at Lambeau Field. Leonard Fournette, 23 carries for $138. Corey Clement, 21 for 86. As LSU got curb stomped by Wisconsin 16-14. Yes, Michael. I know. That's what I said. Danny Etling was there prior to Joe Burrow. All right. Feet says the Florida State Live was embarrassing last night. Being an FSU fan, watching the panel speak in denial about the SEC. Yeah, well, those guys, I will forever stick up for our guys, James, Chris, and George. They're phenomenal. They know their Florida State football. They know football, period. But yes, the SEC, is it the best conference this year? We don't know. It has not played the best football, so it cannot be ranked as the best conference right this second because Texas A&M lost to Miami, because LSU lost to Florida State, because Alabama lost to Texas. But those are 3 games. Therefore, we will properly evaluate those games and that the SEC is not the best right now. Now, if that turns around in bowl season, and certainly we've got this final weekend with Georgia, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Kentucky, South Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State. Not looking good for the SEC there. But we do have bowl season. And we've got a conference that is what? 14-3 in the playoff. And I understand what we were talking about last night, and Feed is telling us this here. We were talking about the entirety of the conference. But you cannot take teams like Kentucky and South Carolina and liken them to the top teams in other conferences. You need to liken Kentucky and South Carolina to Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech and Illinois and Northwestern and, and the SEC. It's not a discussion. And I make this conversation and I make this claim every offseason. I say, I want to be able to argue best conference. And we're going to be able to do that most likely this offseason. For the first time in forever, we are going to be able to say we can have a legitimate argument about best conference. If we're just going to take the results on the field, if we're also going to supplement that with, okay, who's got the best recruiting rankings and who's got the best NFL draft, well, the SEC is going to still hold those positions. And as I was trying to explain last night, as it comes to the NFL draft, yes, of course, the top of the NFL draft, or the entirety of the NFL draft, is represented in the SEC mostly by Bama and Georgia. From the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, the ACC, Clemson, Florida State, etc. Yes. But after that, the SEC is still extremely strong in the NFL draft. LSU, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Florida, even Kentucky. Strong NFL draft showings. So, Ed would like to see Northwestern play Tennessee in the Pinstripe Bowl. Now, talk about a curb stomping. Those two teams played in the Outback Bowl in 2015. And now that was a curb stomping, Ed, if you want to put that accurately in the chat. That game was 45-6. That was a curb. Now that's a curb stomping. And the total yardage in that game was about 1,000,000 to 3. Mike says bowl season is a joke. Okay. Mike doesn't watch any bowl games. Mike says the only bowls that matter are the New Year's Six and the playoffs. Okay. Well, I can understand your perspective on the playoffs. Why do the New Year's Six bowls count? Why do those count in others? Did it count 3 years ago when Dan Mullen was missing half of his team and lost by 35 points in the Cotton Bowl to Oklahoma? Ohio State's 4 or 5 best offensive players sat against Utah in the Rose Bowl. North Carolina lost to Texas A&M in the Orange Bowl a few years ago and had 2,000-yard rushers, and their 2 best wide receivers out, did not play, opted out. I think if we are going to say the bowls are a joke, but not the New Year's Six, well, actually, that has all crept into the New Year's Six as well. So they are a joke as well. If you want to consider the bowls a joke, then you have to move that narrative into the New Year's Six. Because while there are less opt-outs, it's becoming pretty much the same. These players are looking at a Cotton Bowl just like they are the Gasparilla Bowl. They don't care. They don't care, and they're opting out. So if you're talking about the legitimacy of the scores, the New Year's Six is really no different at this point. And that's a pretty recent trend, but it's there. Ed is asking which Alabama players will sit out when they don't make the playoffs. I have no idea. I know that they showed up last year, and I thought that was just an amazing testament to Nick Saban and the Alabama culture that Bryce Young and Will Anderson played in the Sugar Bowl. That was phenomenal. Ferris, bowl games are a 2024 preview season showcase, and they are to a certain extent. They always have been, and even more so now. Get to see young players. I love the bowl games. Love the bowl games. Now, I don't like when I'm trying to figure out the legitimacy of two teams. Let's take what should be a really good game. Not a top of the line elite game, but let's take Missouri and Oregon State in a bowl game. To me, that's a great game. To me, that's a great matchup. Now, if they both have 4 or 5 or 6 key opt-outs, then there's going to be an excuse about who won and why they won. They shouldn't have won. They wouldn't have won. And that I don't like. But give me those kind of matchups all day. Give me the 4th best team in the Big Ten against the 4th best team in the SEC. All those type of matchups. Absolutely. Will's checking in for us here. Will, what's going on today?
Well, every time I hear about bowl games, I have to say, I know like there's a lot of opt-outs of these bowl games, but I mean, I know no one else may care about this, but I enjoy the Group of 5 bowl games just because this is these teams' chance. Like this is their Super Bowl. This is their chance for people to actually watch them play.
Yeah.
And that's why like they're usually evenly matched games. So like I enjoy it for the good football and for these teams that give it their all in these bowl games.
I'm right there with you, Will. I enjoy the Group of 5, and I don't get to see Group of 5 football during the season because I'm watching the big games. And that's when I will sit down and I'll see MAC teams play for the first time. I'll see Sunbelt teams for the first time. I'll see some teams that I didn't see since week 0. And I get to catch up on them. I love to look ahead and try to project, okay, who's coming back? Okay, that running back that gained 115 yards in this bowl game. Oh, he's coming back next year. Awesome. Okay. Then there's a guy that I enjoy those games as well. I'm right there with you.
And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see just because like I feel like the SEC, they've lost some games this year. So it'll be interesting to see if they can turn it around in the bowl season, even with the opt-outs. I know people like, well, it's the opt-outs and stuff, but I mean, still, like it's opt-outs versus opt-outs. I mean, some may affect teams more, but it's still a pretty even playing field.
Usually.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Purdue LSU wasn't even because.
No.
Yeah. That was ugly.
Although LSU did have a lot of them, but Purdue basically gutted their offense. Yeah. And that just turned out to be, that is the epitome of the ugliness of opt-outs and what it can do to a matchup.
For sure.
What was that game? 63-7?
That sounds right. Yeah.
So do you believe the Pac-12 is the best conference?
I don't think there's definitively a best conference. If I were to say what the best conference is, I would still say the SEC. But I think there's an argument to be made for the best conference. You can make an argument for the Pac. You can make it, which like we haven't seen that probably since 2014. I mean, that was the last year the Big Ten was better than the SEC on the field in the bowl games. But besides that, we really haven't had much of an argument that the SEC isn't the best conference, and that's what makes this bowl season more fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. Michael is actually telling us that even if the offense was gutted, LSU was going to still win big. Probably.
No, not much faith in Aiden O'Connell and the boys.
No, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So you really like Oregon?
I think Oregon look like the complete team that can win the national championship. I'm not saying they will, but they look like the real deal. And I think they're definitely going in the right direction to be competitive. I mean, they're still not at that consistency that Ohio State's at, but I feel like with the NIL money that they're doing, they may have a chance to be as consistent as Ohio State down the road.
Yeah.
So, Dan Lanning looks like the real deal as well, although he has to maybe tone it down with the aggressive decisions.
And Lanning took his stand this week. He let us know he's not going to Texas A&M. He loves Oregon.
Conundrum, you were bugging me last night in the WVU show too, man. We just got to get our offense figured out. Like, we have much better offensive talent that we've had in a long time coming in this recruiting class. So as long as they can get coached up and the play calling can be better, I feel like the Irish can compete in the playoffs, not just get in and get destroyed.
Yeah, so
In
you're
20
looking at the conundrum comment there.
Yeah.
Is Notre Dame actually the fifth best team in the Big Ten? I think that's debatable. I think they could be the third.
Yeah.
They could be fifth. They could be third. Again, we don't know. It's all debatable.
Yeah. It's all debatable. Frustrating
They're
season, but
definitely not sixth,
no.
and I don't believe they're second. So 3, 4, or 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. It's a frustrating season, but I don't know. I will see. It'll be interesting to see who wins the quarterback job. If it's going to be a transfer, Kenny Minchie or Stephen Jelly. But people are thinking Steve's out of the race now because Kenny's passed him already. Yeah.
All right.
But anyway,
Well, finish strong. Finish 9-3. Give Ohio
Yeah.
State a better data point in case they need it.
Oh, I have one more question that popped into my head, Mark. Do you think Michigan will actually make the playoff if they lose to Ohio State?
No, a lot
I
would
believe
have
so.
to happen.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm sure Michigan fans will think otherwise. But I'm like, if you look at their schedule, they haven't beaten anyone. I mean, Penn State they're good, but
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
going to be it.
Yeah.
That will be it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta get
I
back to
just
work, Mark. I just wanted to chime in about the bowl games and some other college football stuff.
Well, thanks, Will. Appreciate it. All right. Michael wants to chime in here. Michael, what's going on today? Hello, Michael. Hello, Michael. Are you with us? Going once, going twice. Michael. Hello. Folks in the chat, you can let Michael know that we tried to bring him on. So there might be an issue. We're getting a message. What is the deal, Mark? The deal is I brought you on 3 times. Hello. Don't know what the deal is. Yes, we cannot hear you. We don't hear anything. So try back, Michael. I would suggest you click out and come back in. Jared says, can't wait for those SEC matchups next year with Oklahoma and Texas. Absolutely. Ed says, will the loser of the Ohio State game play Alabama in the Orange Bowl? So Ed's looking for Ohio State to lose and play Alabama in the Orange Bowl. That would be a nice matchup. Oh, are there going to be some serious opt-outs for Ohio State in particular? Wow. Georgia, Texas, and Austin next year? Wow. Yeah. Let's not get too excited about next year. Let's focus on the here and now. Let's enjoy it. Jed Fish, the UCLA in a few days. Can you imagine? Yep. Stepping up, better job. I know one Arizona fan on Twitter that follows me that will be awfully, awfully upset and disappointed. Gregory bringing up something that is really going to hit home if it happens, and I believe it will. Consider this. Consider opt-outs for playoff games. We all think, oh, that can't happen. It's the playoffs. You're playing for a national championship. Well, think about this. Got a 12-team playoff. If you do not receive a bye, you have to understand that if you are going to be a high selection in the NFL draft, that you are looking at, okay, am I putting my neck on the line for one game to win a championship? Okay, absolutely. That's why I'm here. Let's go for it. But, the prospects are either I've got to play 4 games to win a national championship. Otherwise, we're not winning the national championship. So I could play 2 games. I could get beat up. I could get injured. and I played 2 games additionally, and nothing happened. We didn't get it done. There are going to be players. I will be surprised if this is not the case, and I will be happy and glad if this is not the case, and I will be happy to be wrong. And I'm not saying it's going to happen the first year or the second year, but maybe by the 4th or 5th year that we're going to see somebody opt out for a playoff game. Yes, not just 4 games, 4 physical, difficult games. Probably you're looking at 4 games that will take the toll of 6, 7, 8 games because of the physicality of the teams, the intensity of the games. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Again, this is not a regularly scheduled show. Just Brent had reached out to me. We wanted to get together, talk some college football. So I thought, hey, let's make it an SEC show. So we brought on Brent. I sent out the link to SEC Media. We had Ty jump on. We've got Michael. He's going to give it another shot. Michael, welcome to the Voice of College Football. Thank you for trying, Michael. Okay. Again, we appreciate you being here for an SEC live show. We even dressed up the set. I brought in the crew. We had them align all the helmets correctly, and the stage hands were doing their job very nicely. All right, folks, it's been a good time. We will be back at 2 p.m. Eastern time over on the Nebraska channel. So join us there for Huskers Live. Nebraska, despite 3-4 in the conference, despite 5-5, guess what? They're still alive to go to the Big Ten championship game. If they get a loss out of Iowa this week, they will be playing Iowa with a probable shot at the Big Ten championship game on Black Friday. How about that? Okay, we'll see you at 2 p.m. Eastern time, Huskers channel. Have a great lunch. Go to games all the time, or you've got your heart set on that one huge matchup, go to ticketsmarter.com to save big. TicketSmarter technology gives you the best competitive prices on the secondary market. Your purchase price is safe and guaranteed. Use promo code BIG, B-I-G, to get $10 off of any purchase of at least $100, or the promo code BIG20, BIG20, to get $20 off of any purchase of at least $300. Use the promo code as many times as you'd like. There is no limit. Get in the game with ticketsmarter.com or the TicketSmarter mobile app. Think smarter, Ticket Smarter.